All right, hello and welcome back to the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast. For the first and let's face it, probably last time, I am your host, Albert Bellamy. I'm gonna try not to screw this up. Big Daddy John David is in the far off land of California, also where our guest today is. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Looks like we're live on all platforms. And let's get it kicked off. I'm joined today by the hardest working intern in podcasting, our man, Hunter Brown. What's going on, Hunter?
Not much. Just finally set back up at High Point. So back in the city of Greensboro, anxious to get back to work.
Lovely city. We were just up there a couple of weeks ago. Have you guys started classes yet?
Yeah, we actually started the day after I moved in. So it was a little bit hectic trying to get everything situated, but finally got myself straight.
And this is junior year for you or senior?
Yes, junior year.
Junior year. Okay. So are you continuing with your internally duties, or is that you have to...
Oh yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Internally duties don't stop just because school duties start.
True. Yeah. So it's next man up today. You know, John David's out. So you're ready to fly solo here. Hope we don't crash the ship.
Let's go ahead. We can co-pilot this one if you feel so inclined.
So those of you in the chat, you're going to have to bribe Hunter well to get your questions in. He is the sole chat minder today. So yeah, if you want something popped up on the screen, he's got it. But without further ado, we're going to try and keep this session kind of on point. And we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Sally Kim. I'm sure many of you are familiar with her work. She works at Google, and I know that her job title there is sort of a fluid thing. I know that she has done data analytics and business intelligence. She's worked at Google for 4 years now. Before that, she had stops at Audible, at Care.com, at Wayfair, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, with DigitasLBi. She's worked as both a full-time employee and a consultant, so she's got insight on how that works and what the angles are there. So before I screw up this intro any worse, Sally, how are you today?
Thanks, Al. I'm good. I'm dialing in from Cali, so it's 9 a.m. for me. So good morning for any others who are on the West Coast. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So I know this is kind of jumping ahead in the script a little bit, but I know you're not super active on LinkedIn. And so I think the other day you said good morning to me, and I looked at my watch and it's like it's 12:30 and her location says New York. So what's it? Are you living in California full time? Because I don't know if we covered this before.
No, I'm from California, so I have family here. Been visiting family while I can work remotely, so dialing in from LA, Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I'm based in New York City. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so good. So I was, I didn't have like a line of questions about that or anything, but that just threw me off for a second. It's like, oh crap, is that completely outdated?
No. But that is a good point. I'm not too active on LinkedIn. I do see sometimes like LinkedIn requests come in, and I try my best to keep up. But I really do appreciate like when people reach out, like and talk about their personal stories, and I try my best to help where I can.
Yeah, it's LinkedIn can kind of eat your life a little bit. So I think most people have kind of mixed feelings about it. You got to remember it's social media, so you can spend too much time there. That's for sure.
That is very true.
So I was going to hit you with the horrible interview question. Tell me about yourself. But if you can take us back to kind of your origin story and coming up in college, where did you become interested in analytics? Because that wasn't your major.
Yeah, I actually got that question a lot when I first started interviewing, but it wasn't on a plus thing. It gave me an interesting story to talk about. So I was a biochemistry major in university and college, and that's because growing up, I thought I was going to be a doctor or a medical researcher. My parents just pushed me down that path. And I was like,
Got
okay,
it.
I don't know what I want to do, so fine, I'll study that. And I did really enjoy the sciences. But I know, Hunter, you're entering your junior year, right? So the winter of my junior year, and for folks who aren't maybe from the States, that essentially means the winter before I started my final year of university, before I had to think about jobs, I basically partook in a course that's very similar to the Google Data Analytics course. It introduced me to business fundamentals, analytics too. And when I took that course, it was just for the winter. It was like an intensive boot camp, live and in person. I did it for fun. I figured, why not? It's a good way. It's a good use of my time during that break, and I loved it. I loved working with people. We worked in teams. Everything that I learned on Excel, for some reason, it like clicked, and I picked it up really easily. We did a lot of team competitions, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought, how cool would it be to do this as my job, to have fun in my job as opposed to kind of just doing a job for the money, right? And so when I entered my senior year, my final year of university, and I started looking for jobs, one person from my team during the program, he had graduated the year before me. He actually reached out to me and he said, "Hey, Sally, I have an opening on my team for an analyst position. Are you interested in applying?" And I was like, yes, I would love a job.
Yeah.
So I applied, and as part of the recruiting process, the interview process, the recruiter gave me 2 weeks to learn SQL, which is one of the technical skills required for data analytics in the industry. And in 2 weeks, it was pretty easy to pick up. I think it was pretty straightforward, lots of resources online. And I showed up at the company on on-site interview, took the test, passed it, connected really well to people, and that's where I got started in analytics. That's my first job.
Wow, that's yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So that sounds a lot like Tina Huang's origin story, or just her first interview where she kind of locked herself in a study room and did SQL for like 11 straight days, 24 hours a day. I'm sure she slept, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd be curious to know, what was your study tactic to master that skill in such a short time?
Yeah, it was really fun. I had a lot of fun with it, actually. I remember, maybe it's because I'm a bit nerdy, but I remember creating a study sheet. I downloaded an app on my phone that was like Learn SQL Quick or something. I forgot. I don't know what it was called.
Yeah.
Basically, specific rules. I put all those in one pager. I created a study sheet, and I brought that page with me whenever I was eating meals. Because my senior year, I was still studying. I didn't let go completely, still studying. And I actually I was working on a thesis. I did a research project, so still pretty busy. So during my meal times and at nighttime is when I brought up that cheat sheet, my study guide, and I was just studying it and reading off of it. It wasn't too bad. I realized also I love SQL, and it's pretty intuitive. You select something from a table where a certain condition is met. For me, that was easy. And then it's just a matter of the specific syntax, like the group by, the having, like those stuff. And then practicing with sample questions on the weekends when I had more time. But during the weekday, it's just memorizing that formula, that syntax.
Yeah. And so I know the learning platforms just evolved so quickly that probably whatever you're using back then is either not around now or has evolved multiple times. So I know you've used SQL quite a bit since then. Given what you know now, how difficult were the questions that you had to face on that interview?
Not that difficult. So I actually do go back to my college and I give SQL workshops.
Awesome.
And I give them essentially my interview questions at the end, and we go through it together or in teams. Now that we're on remote, I just put people into teams and have them hash it out. It's really not that hard. Funnily enough, did an interview too somewhat recently, just for practice, and I almost got the exact same question I got almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
These are just basic SQL questions that just ensures that you have a good foundation. it's not too difficult. There were for interview questions, at least for my personal experience, there aren't those really tricky questions where you have to do lots of maybe nested queries or subqueries.
Okay, yeah.
Jargon for folks.
Window functions and things that start getting super advanced.
Yes, it's not going to be super complicated. It's usually just one query. Maybe for functions, it's like sum, max, group. So you would have to use
Gotcha.
by, but nothing super complicated. Yeah, none of those analytical functions.
Let's, Hunter, do we have anything worth pausing the interview for?
We just got one question from Lauren Branch. Will most interviewers actually require a SQL test taking for the interviewees?
I don't know about most. I can only speak from my own personal experience. I would say I would think for the beginner or like entry level analyst, before you have work history to prove it, I would probably expect that to have SQL interview questions. Especially if you say you know SQL, they'll want to make sure you do know SQL if you don't have that work experience to back it up. Having said that, it's usually not too hard. There are now more platforms where you can do it online. They'll give you the test online and you just submit it whenever you have time. For me, the harder part actually is writing SQL is very different from typing it. It feels different, looks different. So practicing in the way in which you'll get the questions will be helpful. And when I was interviewing, I used to use Glassdoor a lot, just an online platform where you can figure out how, there might be a new platform out there. I haven't looked for jobs in a while, but it gives you a little bit sneak peek into what kind of questions that company might ask you for an analyst type of role. So I used to use that a lot. I used to do a lot of research. And if I'm interested in applying for a company, I would go to LinkedIn, try to figure out, do I have any connections at that company? And just to get to know them, chat with them. What is the company culture like? Because just as I want to get into that company, I also want to make sure it's a nice company and that they'll want me to. Like you want them as much as they want you. So it's a fit. So I would do all that research beforehand.
Very cool.
Yeah, so the culture fit is huge. And do you engage in mock interviews? Is that something you've used in the past?
Yeah, I help with mock interviews too. More than happy to do it. I do a lot of volunteering on the side as well. I'm very passionate about helping those from underprivileged backgrounds. I used to do refugee work as well. So yes, I do mock interviews for students, for underprivileged folks, for anybody in which I can help. I enjoy it. I also interview in my current team. We had a couple openings, so I also do interview at Google.
Dang it, Kim, you're screwing up my interview. You're skipping ahead to the later questions. It's all good. Let me find out how to. There we go. All right. Yeah, learning has occurred. So I was going to ask, have you done an interview or seen an interview that uses a whiteboard? Because I know that's a tactic. Just because you talked about the muscle memory is different between typing the SQL commands and writing them out. Mm-hmm. I know that there are interviews out there that have you handwrite.
Yeah, my first job when I interviewed and I went on site, if you're going to go on site, it's probably going to be whiteboard. So that's a clue there. So it's good to.
Yeah, so that's harder to do remotely.
Yeah, it's hard to do remotely. So right now, so currently for Google, I can probably talk about it, is we create a Google Doc. So just like another sheet and open it along with your video on one hand and then your sheet on the other. The interviewer, so I would post in my question, give the example tables, and then have the person I'm interviewing type out the SQL query. So it will be more kind of intuitive, the typing versus the writing.
So fun fact, before I met you, the only thing I knew about, it's Bowdoin College, right? That's how
yeah.
The only thing I knew about it was that Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain taught there.
Mm-hmm.
So military history, and so when looking at it, it was like, well, I'm sure there are other people. Franklin Pierce, President of the United States. Before Barack Obama, he was the only president with a vowel at the end of his name. So Yeah, more fun facts for you.
Oh, very
So,
cool.
I
I
mean,
actually didn't know about that one.
I know that you mentioned your charity work, and I know that you were, I mean, just looking at your timeline, it looks like you were doing charity work like all the way back through college and into high school. Where did that where did that spirit come from? Is that something you get from your parents?
Maybe. I'm not really sure. I'm actually a first generation college student, meaning I'm the first person in my family to go to college. And I've been very lucky, I think, I had lots of mentors, a lot of opportunities came by my way, and I took advantage of those. A lot of people helped me, and so I've always really wanted to give back too. I like passing the baton,
Yeah.
because there were, whatever I can do to give back. I was one of those lucky people. I guess good vibes, good juju got sent my way.
Yeah.
So the least I could do is to do my best and help others. In regards to why I'm so passionate about maybe like refugee specifically or underprivileged students is I can I feel like I can maybe have the most impact there, and I know it's one of the hardest groups to in terms of adjusting to wherever their new location is. And since my parents are immigrants, I could relate to that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do my part to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just came from my battalion headquarters where they're sending 130 Marines up to Quantico to handle the influx of Afghan refugees up there. So
Yeah.
that is super important work. I know that some of your charity work now is more kind of professionally oriented, which is amazing that you're taking your skill set and trying to help underprivileged people with that. But I see that, going back, it was much more, I think you had one where you worked in a shelter or a soup kitchen, something like that.
Yeah. It was a women's shelter in essence. Women who had to leave their homes maybe due to a variety of reasons, whether it be drugs or violence or anything like that. That I was personally affected by someone close to me who was going through that situation. So that's why I got involved in that, and that's why I wanted to help. So even during the times when I was doing research, I'm very motivated by personal stories, by people around me. So I had done, for example, diabetes research because my best friend in college, I found out had type 1 diabetes. Before then, I had no idea what diabetes was. I didn't understand the difference between type 1 and type 2. So that summer, I wanted to use my skills. I came from a science background. I wanted to figure out how could I learn more about this field, maybe give her hope about advancements, or do my part and see, like, can I help in any way? That's just me, my personality. I am very people oriented. And one of the reasons why I went to analytics as opposed to science research. Not to say scientists aren't social. I just really like connecting with people and talking with people. And as a business analyst or in analytics, I'm usually in meetings. I have really good relationship with stakeholder groups, people who I work for, in essence, who I give my data solutions and products to. So I really like that. Relationship building is important to me.
Yeah, more stakeholders within the organization, or are you doing a lot of customer facing stuff at this point?
Within Google for now. I have done customer facing, but currently I'm doing more internal stakeholders. More or less the same thing.
Yeah, got to sell them on the information and your conclusions either way. So, I mean, speaking of Google and and the charitable work, I know that there is a huge kind of huge value placed on charity and work kind of outside of your technical job. Was that something that they asked about, and do you think that was a plus for you in getting work there, that they looked at your experience and said, this is someone that's more than just a brain? It's kind of hard to.
That's an interesting question. No one's necessarily asked me that before, like asked about during the interview process, like asked about my volunteer efforts or whatnot. I'm not too sure how that fits in. What it does help me with, though, is when I do interview for companies, the first thing I try to do is establish a rapport. Like I said,
Yeah.
relationships really important to me, and I actually tend to get very friendly with recruiters to the point where I once considered, should I become a recruiter? I love talking with lots of different people, but the first thing I do is establish a rapport, some connection, something we have in common. The more things, the more experiences I have, whether it be volunteering, something I'm passionate about, maybe the recruiter might also have something similar. So it's just a way for me to connect. But as opposed to it being a plus per se on a resume, I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
Okay. Hunter just gave me the bad signal. So what do we got, Hunter?
So we've gotten quite a few questions. I've kind of tried to condense some of them.
Yeah.
So to start out, several people have been asking about starting a career in the analytics field, coming from a different background. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Like, was it hard or anything?
Well, like what steps maybe could be taken? Yeah, was it difficult for you or to get started in the analytics field?
Yeah, no. So it's not hard at all. It can actually be a very big plus. And the good example I give when I go back to my college and I talk about analytics, introduce it, and why they should come to analytics, is my first job. There were, I think, like four analysts, pretty small team. I was a biochemistry major, sociology major, econ major, and psych major. So kind of all over the place. Doesn't really matter
Wow.
what you like major in, at least in the States. I can't speak for other job markets, but it really hasn't mattered. I will say there are times when they'll ask for, like, give me examples in which you've done something analytical. And so I was a biochemistry major, which I've mentioned. And so I know, Anna, you have a biological bachelor, so bachelor's in biology perhaps, or biochemistry. You do a lot of experiments during that. There's lab courses, lab work. You can use those examples to talk about the analytical process, creating a hypothesis, testing that hypothesis. All of that is the analytical process. So I specialize in chemical analysis. Analysis is in the name. I essentially looked at biofuel compounds and analyzed, like, what is the composition, how much carbon to oxygen ratio, et cetera, do we have. And I just talked about that as part of my analysis or analytical experience background. And that's really all you need. You can use a lot of what you already have, coming from diverse backgrounds, to fit what they're looking for in a role. It just requires some creativity sometimes, but you can definitely use it. And then if you ever need help, this is where, like, mock interviews or asking people, others, might be very helpful.
All right. We've got another question here. I think a lot of people might struggle with this. Imposter syndrome. Have you ever experienced it, and how do you deal with it?
Oh, of course, of course. Imposter syndrome is so prevalent. There have even been talks at Google to address that, to talk about it. To say that you're not alone. We all experience this. I particularly felt it a lot in the beginning of my career. I felt like, especially because sometimes I feel like I talk my way into interviews. I just connect really well to with the people, and they're like, I like you, so I'll hire you. What does help me though is everybody goes, I really go through it with every role I take in the beginning. But what helps me is to think about, when I actually do produce stuff, that starts to build my own like credibility to others, stakeholders, but also builds my own self-confidence too. But you're definitely not alone. Imposter syndrome is so common. And I'm not sure if it necessarily even goes away per se, but it's just much smaller voice in the back of your mind. So it doesn't really bother me so much anymore. Even with the DA cert, the data analytics cert, creating that, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. Do I have enough tenure? Do I have enough experience? Like, am I even qualified to talk about this? And you just go with it. I just wanted to do, of the things that I do know, see how I can help people with that. And that was more than enough. And and for everyone else, we had lots of other subject matter experts. It wasn't just me. We had everybody, full gamut, from financial analytics to healthcare. I have e-commerce background as well, advertising analytics. And we did that to ensure that the course will be all encompassing. It would be industry agnostic. So
Great answer. Fantastic. We have another question here from a person named Albert, actually. They were
It's a good
wondering
name.
they were wondering how to get an entry-level data job at Google after completing the certification. And so maybe speak a little bit to how to get in touch with the hiring manager.
Skipping ahead to another one of my future questions. I don't like you anymore, Albert. All good.
It's funny. There's also other Sally Kims at Google, and sometimes I get their emails. So hiring at Google. Oh geez. So let's see. Like tips to getting hired?
Sure. Maybe how to reach out and better connect with people at Google or something along those lines.
Yeah. I can say what, I guess, historically, I would say like most people who I've found in my personal experience who end up in analytics jobs at Google tend to come from other companies. Like they've acquired some experience before coming here. So I don't know about entry level and analyst positions per se. However, Google has been making a lot of grounds and efforts to try to hire more entry level folks, but specifically also those from underprivileged background. And that's through there are programs on Google. For example, there are like programs I think it's called Bold internship. There's a lot of things. Europe, I've mentored folks from Europe. It's essentially a program where we have interns from this nonprofit who come to Google. They're matched with Google mentors and just talk about like how to help with their career process, and if they want to convert after their internship is over to get a full-time job within Google. So there are inroads that way. That's what I know currently. For myself, I did not enter Google straight out of college. I wish. I had to get a lot of experience elsewhere. Google for me I never thought I'd come here. It was like, that far off dream in the future, like how cool it'd be to work for Google, like Silicon Valley. Growing up, that was like, wow. But there was a recruiter that I got along really well with. He helped me get that contract position at Audible, which is Amazon's audiobooks branch. And we got along really well. And so when the Google opportunity came about, he reached out to me while I was still at Audible. I hope I can say that, to say like, do you want to apply for this Google job? Do you think you'd be interested? And I was like, yes, it's always been a dream of mine. I would love to. And so, yeah, and that's how I personally got in. So I don't know what I can say in regards to entry-level analyst positions, just that you can check on Google Careers, the career page, to see if there are entry-level analyst positions out there. But to my knowledge, at least currently, is those internships or those other kind of alternative pathways might be the best ways for entry level.
I think you answered that pretty well.
Yeah, I will say it was in a totally different division of Google for my internship, but I didn't meet a single person for whom that was their first company. And a lot of the Nest people had been in Nest company before it was bought out by Google, but there were tons of other people in devices and services, and every last one of them had experience, and a lot of them decades of experience at other companies before they ever came there. So
yes,
it's not common, I don't think.
That's most common. I actually would recommend working at other companies first before coming to or trying to apply or getting into these big companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook. My own personal recommendation, it gives you, because I think personally with each job that you get, or that each job you apply for, each company you work for, you acquire more and more skills. So in my own personal background, I've actually moved around a lot of companies in the beginning, and I've gotten questions about that. For me, it's about personal growth. So the way to put this is, even within analytics, you might notice, or once you start working analytics, every company kind of uses different software, different programs. And yes, the underlying knowledge, like the SQL skills, Excel skills, spreadsheet, dashboarding, those skills are transferable. But the platforms themselves, there still is that initial kind of learning curve to get used to the specific platform. For example, Tableau for dashboards, or Data Studio for dashboards, MicroStrategy for dashboards, Datorama. There's so many tools out there. Every company prefers something different. The more companies you work for, and you can show on your resume, in my personal resume under dashboarding, I list all those programs. And the reason why that's nice, and that will help you in the long run and get you more and more marketable, is some recruiters aren't necessarily like data analysts themselves. They are instructed to look for, I need someone with Tableau skills or someone with Data Studio skills. And they'll look for those keywords. If you have it on your resume, like they'll zero in on that and instantly like highlight you as an applicant. And so if you stay with one company only, especially big companies, they tend to create their own products as well, and not like the big name brand stuff too. So you won't have those marketable skills. You'll have pigeonholed yourself to one skill set, one group, one family of platforms that you know. So it becomes harder then to leave as well and explore other job opportunities. So I would actually recommend start small and then diversify, then work your way up.
All right, very cool. And before we move on, while we're on the topic of hiring, I want to go ahead and bring in, we've had a few questions about data portfolios. How do you feel about those? How do you feel is an effective way to construct those and get them out there?
Yeah, I know in this cert we talk about like Kaggle, GitHub. There are lots of different ways. And personally for me in the past, I've even sent examples of like, this is how I write my SQL queries. Because there is an art to it. There's beauty in it. I think personally, I love SQL. I can geek out about it. All of those are really helpful. If you just think about it from the interviewer's point of view, they really want you, but they want to make sure that you can do what you say you can, right? So think about it as like, almost like dating, there's a risk. Are you who you say you are? And if you provide these portfolios, these examples, it makes them feel more safe, more comfortable with you, that yes, this person really can do what they're saying. And it just provides a little bit of assurance. It's always, I think it's a plus. You can always get better at it too. So I would use that. It also helps in regards to imposter syndrome. You put your best self forward. You put your best self forward. They actually have seen you and your work, and it should help alleviate that once you get hired.
Yeah, no one likes a blind date on the first interview.
Yes, people want to give them some context. Let them know you a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't show up so fat and bald when you look like that kid in your profile picture.
In today's world, yes, catfishing.
All right, Hunter, back to the chat. So, dovetailing off of some of that stuff you're talking about. So your on-ramp into Google, I know that you started out as a consultant. Can you talk briefly about how that's structured and then how that worked for you? What was the interview process? How did you then become a full-time employee?
Yeah. Let me think about the interview process. The interview process is actually very interesting. It's very similar to the cert. So the interview process for the consultant, like an external consultant, contractor, is different from a full-time position at Google. The interview process and the hiring process is different. When I got hired as the consultant, it was like the regular behavioral at first. And then once I get to the second round, the on-site, this is actually where I had to do a case study. I had to walk them through what is give me a presentation, an analytical presentation that you've done recently. Walk me through it as if I was your stakeholder.
So this was one you'd already done. They didn't give it to you to take home and work on?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's something, because I already had experience. So entry level, they might give you, a lot of other companies will just give you something and then have you, it's just for consistency. So they make it, it's easier for them to grade it. I see they have a rubric, but for this one, it was, they gave me like, go ahead, like use your own example and present to me your analysis. So it was actually very similar to the capstone in that regard. So yeah, when I talk about the capstone, actually, when we were creating the example for the interview that I gave, it was based on the presentation I had given, but we tweaked the industry. We changed all the data. Like it's not the same at all, but I used the presentation I gave to help with the capstone stuff too. So it's very in line with what I went through personally. Yeah, so I got hired as an external consultant. It's very different. In case people aren't sure what the difference is, as an external consultant, I work at Google, but it's more so I work for Google, not as full time. I don't get the Google benefits. Google doesn't pay for my insurance or anything like that.
Did you get the beanie? Because that's the most important part.
I don't get the beanie. That's full time. Yeah, I wasn't a Googler. So I technically worked for an agency, and Google hires that agency to provide like short-term contract work to fill gaps. It could be gaps for a variety of reasons. Mine personally was due to several folks on the team being out on maternity leave and paternity leave, and so they needed short-term contract workers, and so I was one of those. Yeah. And for me, it was a really nice introduction to Google. Yes, contract work can be stressful in that there's a finite time period and then you have to look for a job again. But for me, the way I saw it was a way for me to check out what it's like to work at Google. And while towards the end of my contract, and I was able to speak with Googlers within the company to figure out transitioning into full-time. So for example, there was a job that I was really interested in. I chatted with the hiring manager. It was really easy to do since we were both in the same company. I could figure out who he was, just chat with him informally to see what is his team like, what is he looking for, and if there was a good fit, then formally start the process.
Okay. And I know you've referenced different people that have helped you along the way. Do you feel like you have true like mentor relationships now and in the past? And
yes.
Can you talk to the role of that in your career?
Yeah, mentors have always been super important to me. Well, not only because like I mentioned earlier, I'm a first-gen college student, so I didn't have examples within my own family. No one's gotten to like this far, I guess, like to this extent. So mentors from the get-go has always been important. It's really important for you to be able to see someone doing what you want to do in order to achieve it, in order for me to even think about that it's possible. So that's how I look at mentors. And I mentioned earlier too, personal relationships is really important for me. So I do have several mentors at Google. It's not necessarily like I specifically go out looking for mentors. It's just people that I found I really connect well with. And they've also started to either see themselves in me, or they just kind of take me under their wing and they want to help me along in my career. Those people, just the natural organic process, like in a very organic way, they do become my mentors. So I have several. I like to just talk with different people. My philosophy being, the more people I can talk to, the more different pathways I can see and kind of experience almost vicariously, I can kind of consider what kind of path do I like, what might I be interested in. Everybody knows maybe like let's say for an analyst position, you might be thinking junior analyst, senior analyst, manager, associate director, just like the traditional ladder.
Yeah.
But within Google, you'll find actually people move around laterally too. They'll go for an analyst to maybe data scientist or a UX researcher, quantitative researcher. They move around. It's fascinating to see that and asking them why. and usually it's pursuing personal interests or professional interests. So for instance, right now, I'm very interested in presentation design, dashboard design. So I would probably, I can focus on that in my career. So it's just out of personal interest, professional interest, whatever you'd like. But I would say like a lot of people don't really go through that traditional route, at least within Google. So I like
Yeah.
to diversify, talk to many people. There might be new things I haven't seen yet or come across that I will enjoy.
And that's what I noticed in the internship too, was just, the experience is enhanced by the more people that you talk to. And actually the one project I worked on, I was actually kind of really digging hard in one direction. And then I talked to someone and said, oh, this other group has been doing that. And once I contacted the group, it was like, oh, you've already done like 75% of the things that I was working on. Let me just get in with you. And then, and then that got me halfway to the finish line of what I was working on, without having to waste more time. So yeah, I suppose it's true in any organization, but yeah, Google, I was just amazed. It's like there's so many overlapping efforts and divisions that kind of interact with each other that I don't know that there's, it's weird being a part of that coming from the military, where there's always an ombudsman or someone that sees everything that's going on beneath them, to go to kind of the polar opposite organization where it's like, yeah, we're just all going to do this and that, and they'll kind of overlap, and we'll have duplication of effort. We'll have a bunch of smart people working on stuff, and we'll get a good answer at the end of it.
Yeah, Google does give a little bit of that freedom. So that, yeah, agreed, 100%. You're given, here's a project, go explore, and I trust you to do your job and to be creative, to talk to people that you need. If you need support, you can talk to your manager who'll guide you more. But I do appreciate that as a culture at Google.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that something that you came to want for yourself after experiences at other companies? I mean, did you use those other experiences to kind of calibrate, hey, this is the environment that's right for me?
To be honest, no. So in other companies, I was used to structure, people telling me what to do. In the beginning, like there's going to be a lot more framework, more structure to that. Just if you're going to be new, it's so helpful and it's less stressful. So when I came to Google, it was one of the first times in which, so people at Google talk about thriving in ambiguity. And so basically it's a challenge. Like they'll give you, here's just an overall arching problem, go forth and solve it. And at the beginning, it's actually really hard. So what helps though, and why I suggest having lots of other like previous experience at other companies, is I can use all that experience and those skills and to figure out, okay, what did I do something in another company that might be similar, and I'm going to approach it in that manner. And also, just like what you said, Al, like talking to other people and they might approach things differently. Just all of those will help. But in the beginning, I will say it actually was a little bit difficult. And I've learned to adjust to it. I've actually learned to then now appreciate it, and I really like it because it gives me autonomy, gives me an independence, and it allows me the space to be curious, but to also just to explore and try new routes. I'm given, here's just a project in a certain amount of time, or I can establish a deadline myself. So I can control that process. I can manage that process myself, and it builds more skill sets, more examples I can talk about too, as if I ever wanted to interview for other positions. So I've learned to appreciate it, but at first it was difficult.
So what skill sets are you working on right now, either in or outside of Google? Like what are you adding to your technical toolbox?
Yeah. Oh, technical. So technical toolbox, Python. I personally like Python over R. And it doesn't really matter which one you use. In terms of interviewing, they think most job descriptions will say like Python or R or something similar, like coding experience. They're translatable. Just like I said earlier with analytics, SQL, there's so many different types of SQL, there are variations, but at the end of the day, it's easy to pick those up once you know the foundation, once you know how to think in a SQL-like manner. So it's not that big of a deal. I personally do like Python. It's more flexible. It's less syntax like freaky or finicky. So going more into Python, yes. I do actually appreciate soft skills a little bit more so.
Yeah.
So I used to be very shy, pretty reserved, very quiet. I really wanted to build on presentation skills and presence to be able to talk to folks, to do things like this, to lead workshops, lead presentations, speaking sessions. So I pushed myself to that. I did master classes within Google. And now, like, I've presented in front of audiences as big as 200 people. I've presented to people who are global CEOs, and all that. Like, I'm sweating bullets, like super, super, super
Mhm.
nervous. But I was able to grow so much from it, and now I'm proud of myself for that. And I think I've changed a lot from that shy, reserved kid to now I use it as an opportunity to connect with people, to figure out how can I be of service? How can I help? So
So that dovetails nicely into, we are limited by legal considerations about how much we can talk about the subject, but you taught, I would say, probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands by now, through the data analytics certificate. So please tell us about that experience. Like, how did they ask you to do that? What was it like putting those together?
Yeah. So I saw that opportunity come by actually internally. And because I keep an eye out on lots of volunteer opportunities, I have several volunteer projects within Google too, as well as outside. And I saw this opportunity come along and I applied for it. I talked about like my they ultimately what they were looking for and is they wanted a diverse group of subject matter experts called SMEs, SMEs.
And they got it.
Yeah. And so I met with the program manager, we talked and we connected really well, talked about what additional things that I could bring. And that's how I got started. In regards to what it's like to teach people, I will say since it's video format, I don't have that personal connection, person to person. I love in live. I love talking with people.
Yeah, it's different staring at a camera, for sure.
It's different. Well, I got used to now staring at the camera. I can do that easily.
Do you pretend it's a person or a group of people?
Hmm?
Do you pretend it's a person or a group of people? Like, is that how? Because I mean, so we did a poll, and you can only do 4 options on LinkedIn. And so we said, who's your favorite instructor from the first 4 lessons of the course? You ran away with it.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, we did a poll for the 5 through 8, and Ayana won it narrowly over Carrie.
I personally know Ayana as well.
Yeah. So we're about to have like a Super Bowl of you versus Ayana for the grand champion. But yeah, so I'm just wondering, people really identified, and I was glad it wasn't just me, that you really related well. I mean, you spoke to the camera as if it was a human audience. And so I was just wondering if do you have a tactic for that? Did you visualize something?
Yeah. No, so I had a blast during the filming process. Like I said, it was during COVID, so there were a lot of precautions in place. But the filming crew and the director, we had so much fun actually. So it was just joking around with them. Like that's how I was able to keep my energy up. And the director, in the beginning, it was kind of awkward, like talking to a camera, yes, but I got really used to it, I got into a jive. I got better as time went on too. So in the beginning, it was a little bit just like reading. No, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, I did appreciate though that there were others around me. So it was like,
Yeah,
like even now, like I'll be talking to you, Alan, Hunter, and like the audience. So I'm aware of that. It's like at the corner of my screen, I can see you, but I just choose to consciously look at the camera while I'm talking.
wow.
As if I'm
I can't do that. I'm staring straight at your picture on the screen. The camera's luckily I have it right below the camera, so you might not notice. But yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an impressive
That
skill. Yeah, no, I couldn't do that either.
No, I don't always do it. It's conscious effort. But I like it because it makes people like others on the screen, on the opposite end, feel more connected, and that's what I want. It's not all about me. I want people to feel at ease. I want people to feel connected.
All right. Anyway, we have a couple other questions from our audience. One of them has been asked by many people. What are some of the basic hard skills that you would recommend for somebody who's starting out in the field, like the bare bones essential? They need to know SQL or Tableau or whatever it is.
Right. I mean, I like to say it's pretty sure I forget when I'm going back to my university like the end of the month, but or end of next month. I forget what I say, but at the end of it, it's just 3 skills, core skills, technical skills, right? Let's not talk about soft skills just say. I can go on forever about that. So it's gonna be SQL, dashboarding, and spreadsheet. Those 3. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
SQL you can teach yourself. Dashboarding, that's kind of just learn to create charts. It's going to be a little platform specific. And then spreadsheets, I feel like a good number of people generally have used it before, so it's not as difficult. Using Excel or Google Sheets or Apple's Numbers, maybe. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't use Apple products, obviously.
I don't either.
I hope I did.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that answered the question perfectly. Then we had another this was specifically asked by Oscar Murillo, but I think it's a more general question entirely. So data analytics versus data science.
Oh, different.
The difference between the two. If someone's on the edge, what should they look for? What should they specialize in? Something like that.
That's a really good question. And I talk about that too when I go back to my university. The way I put it is at a very high level, data analytics looks at what happened in the past to inform the present. Like what's going on now, what's going on and how can I use the past to optimize current strategy. Data science looks at what happened in the past to try to predict the future. So overarching, that's the difference. Now, when it comes to you yourself and choosing between the two, at the end of the day, you can think about the data, what you do in the day-to-day basis. So data analytics, you're going to be much more SQL heavy. Data science, you're going to be much more R or Python heavy. So if you really enjoy R or Python, go forth and conquer and go into data science. Try it out. You can some people start in data analytics and move into data science. Do whatever you like. Life, you don't have to just stick with one thing. Go have fun with it and explore, do different careers. But if you prefer the SQL, I personally love SQL. You can stay in the data analytics portion, and you can still learn R and Python and do more of the data sciencey stuff too. But the bulk of your work or your career being defined as data analytics. That's the career path I've chosen.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. That's pretty much all we got for now. So
yeah,
back to you, Al.
Yeah, so I think the culprit is clearly John David's StreamYard account, because this has happened twice when he was in the driver's seat where he dropped out, and now it's happened to me. So yeah, definitely John David's fault. Anyway, so I hope you guys had a good time while I was kicked off the internet. We have a guest that wants to show an amazing presentation that he did for the capstone study, if you're ready to review this. So let me bring him in. Navneet, how you doing today?
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Doing well.
So I could totally relate to Sally when she was saying that she used to be a shy kid. I am like that. I was a little nervous before getting onto this podcast. I also told Albert that, but I am here and I want you to review my project. Before that,
he literally gave himself like a 1-second pep talk. Was all that was required. He said he was nervous and didn't know if he wanted to come. I said why, and 30 seconds later he was like, "Never mind, I'm good." So yeah, it wasn't super epic, but so here, can you guys see that? Okay, give me a thumbs up from someone in the audience as well. Oh, Fernando, it's clearly John David's thought. Anyway, okay, so here is your Tableau public, Navneet. So go ahead and if you want to kind of quarterback me through this thing, and you can talk about what you put into it. Sally, by all means, talk about what you think.
So before we start with the project, first of all, I want to thank Sally for being a fantastic teacher and a mentor to everyone who is enrolled in the certificate. Believe me when I say that you made me fall in love with SQL, and I pretty much use it every time I need to analyze a data set.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. Like things like this really make me happy. I don't get to hear stories like that since it's all video. So thank you, Navneet.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, as I've already told you before, that this project took me around a month to complete, to analyze the data set, to visualize the insights, and I also wrote an article about this. Uh, I don't know if you have saw that or not, but the reason that it took me so long was I wanted to inspire those guys who didn't try the capstone project and claimed their certificate of completion. I wanted them to know that if I can do something like this with just 2 or 3 months of experience in data analytics, then they can too, and they should. So, starting with the quick introduction about the case study. Cyclist is a Chicago-based bike-sharing company. As you made the capture projects, you already know that. So the purpose of the case study was to find the riding patterns between its members and the casual riders. So the members and the casual riders are the user type of cyclistic. In the first part, you can see that riders by user type. I used a donut chart to show the number of riders, to show the number of rides taken by the user type. And in the second part, I used a stack column chart to show the number of rides taken by the members and the casual riders on different bike types. So here you can see that there are classic bikes, dog bikes, and electric bikes, and the number of rides taken on them by members and the casual riders. So what do you think about this?
Well, first off, Daphne, we talked about this briefly for those on the live stream. This is by far one of the prettiest dashboards I've seen recently, probably the prettiest I've seen this week. So huge kudos. I love it, Daphne. And I'm very impressed by this. The fact that you've done this with only, you said like 2 months experience.
Yeah.
This is better than I would say for some folks who have years of experience. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to say any names. But this, first off, is amazing. I love how you've designed it. I can talk through it. I've made some notes because this was shared with me earlier. So I would say specifically, if you want feedback, I know we have a few minutes left. So design, content, and context. So first off with design, I love that you have a very clean and clear layout. That's really important. A lot of people try to put too many things all at once.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You keep it super simple. And that's the beauty of it. Simplicity is beauty. So love it. Kudos to you on that. That's neat. I don't know if Al's on still, but there was a meme that kind of shows a little bit how, Al, can you show what that means? So here's something that I show when I give presentations on dashboard design or presentation design. It's basically says like, straightforward. You read the really big font first, then right below it, and then below it, and then the tiny one up at the very top. This is a natural way in which we process information. With this in mind, Al, if you can hop back into dashboard, what Navneet had done beautifully is he has the overview at the very top, right? And then people will go naturally down below into the subsections. So the summary is at the top, and then the subsections are further details upon in which the overall summary is based. So that's really good. So now, Navneet, if you wanted to go further into presentation design or dashboard design, I would recommend to consider the uses of color. Color is really important. It makes things pretty. However, that's actually not when you should use color. The way you're using color correctly, and I love it, is when you differentiate between how members are in blue and casual riders are in green. And you want to keep that consistent throughout your dashboards. That's good. But up on the top in the overview where there's different colors, it should be one single color. And the reasoning behind that is, think about if you highlight everything because everything's important, then nothing is important at the end of the day. So you only highlight what actually is truly important. So that's only if you want to go further into presentation design. I will say though, a lot of people do stuff like this, so it's really not the end of the day. It's optional. And then moving on to the next one, I want to talk about in regards to content. Yeah, if we go to infographic. So I love with what you did here, Navneet. You have like bite-sized pieces of data that's easily digestible for folks who aren't data savvy. You and I, we love SQL. We like digging into data. Not everyone's like that. Trust me. You talk about data to someone who doesn't care, you're going to lose, their eyes are going to glaze over and they stop listening to you like 30 minutes ago. So things like this is going to be super helpful. My one recommendation with this here is to start off with knowing who your audience is. Navneet, earlier you mentioned that the point of the analysis was to figure out the differences between member and casual writers. That's good. You know the purpose of the analysis, but you should know who that analysis is for. For instance, if this is for marketers, you want to make sure these are sound bites, snippets that they can directly use. So things like 4.07 million users, very interesting for you and I. But for marketers, you might need to give them a little bit more context. They might not be able to just, it doesn't mean anything. 4 million users, yay, is that a lot? So that goes to then to the third thing I want to cover, which is context. So if you scroll further down, in this chart, the first one up on top, that time series, what I loved is you highlighted out like the peak on Monday. You have 400,000 writers and rides, and then the low point, right? Kind of like the weekly average almost.
Yeah.
So providing and you've shown that like the 400K consists of 23% of total rides. Amazing. That means it's not a small chunk of total rides. Monday is really significant in terms of volume. But data, you always need context, especially when you know who your audience is. So think about it this way. That is really good. The 400K is 23% of total. If you wanted to go even further and be even more telling a story behind the data, you can say things like, the busiest day of the week has 400K rides, which is 2 times weekly average. That's one slightly better. And then now here's the kicker. This is where I think you can shine, and it helps to know who your audience is. What if you told your audience that, and your audience is a team of marketers, that the busiest day of the week has 400K rides? That's as if all the working individuals in downtown Chicago ride their work or took a bike to work that day. That gives context. That tells the marketers exactly how big 400K is. If everybody who's a working professional in downtown Chicago takes a bike to work, then they're like, oh, wow, actually, I can understand that's a huge volume. It gives context to folks who aren't really knee deep into data, who don't know, is 400K a lot? Is it a little? It gives them something that they can relate to. So yeah, that's that. I would conclude there. But other than that, like these are just optional areas, Navneet, that you can get even better at if you'd like. But what you have is beautiful. It's something that people with years of analytics experience don't even do as well as you do. So I am very impressed by this. I just am very passionate about dashboard design, presentation design. So I can provide lots of feedback in regards to just like the small details if you wanted to go further. But what you have is so more than sufficient. This is beautiful.
Albert, if you click on the details tab under the dashboard, yeah, there I have created two details pages also regarding these dashboards. If you have seen that, please scroll down a little.
Sure.
Ooh. Very nice. So as a former consultant, this is Navneet, were you a consultant as well? This is good. Because what consultants really like is insight. So what is the objective data? Objectively, what does the data tell us? And then conclusion or recommendation is, okay, now that you know this data point, so what? What should you do with that data? So if your audience is a team of marketers, then the marketers should do X, Y, Z. So it sounds like you have that. And I like that you highlighted like 4.07 million rides. Like you highlighted things that are really important. Just remember, next iteration can be putting that into a little bit of context, a little bit more context, but beautiful. beautiful. Your uses of color, bolding, how you've separated out insights and conclusion. Good instincts.
Navneet, is there anything to point out on this? I see that these are like your hidden slides in a PowerPoint. If they start asking questions, then you click these up. But anything to highlight here?
Just the details about the visualization that was there. You can scroll down a little more.
Sure.
Yeah.
These are all so pretty.
I went to design a little more, but I
Yeah,
love creating
you and me both.
visualizations that tells a story. So
I
there's
love
that.
So you're still improving this? Are you still working on this, or is this the finished product for this? Have you moved on?
Yeah, this is the finished product. I'm not working on
Okay.
this.
What are you working on now? Anything else?
I'm trying to work on a climate change project, but it's still in the research phase. I would like to get your feedback, both of your feedback, if you would allow me to.
Sure. Are you talking now?
No, not now. I will
Okay.
connect with you on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, no worries. Just send it along. Is it on your Tableau Public?
No, it's still in the research phase. I told you that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no worries. We can do that.
So I'm connected
All right.
with Albert, but not with you, Sally. So I'm gonna send a connection request right away after this podcast.
Sounds good.
Navneet, thanks for coming and sharing your presentation with us, and I appreciate the fact that you overcame initial nervousness to come in and make a contribution, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Albert.
Yeah, it's inspiring. I want to go back to my dashboards and make it prettier. Oh, amazing job, Navneet.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no worries. We'll have you on as a guest. You can show us all how to do it. All right. So yeah, I think that's the last bit of business we had. Sally, what do you envision for yourself going forward?
Doing the same, I guess. I've done a lot more volunteering stuff. I'm very passionate ever since the Coursera thing and going to my alma mater. Continue doing the same. I think because I love it, I'm very passionate about it. The more people I can help, it's a win-win for me. I feel like I'm contributing. It makes me feel connected to people. So
yeah,
I'm very
absolutely.
happy, and I feel lucky that I found something that I get a lot of satisfaction from.
That's super cool. So where can people get in contact with you?
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm not always on it, so I apologize if I don't reach back out.
No need to apologize for that.
But please send stories. That's the way in which I really do enjoy connecting with people. If people say like it's really impacted, whether it be the Coursera course or this live stream, it's impacted their lives in some way, I really appreciate that.
All righty. Sally, we really appreciate you coming on. We know that you are a busy working professional, and this is an early part of your workday out there in California. So we really appreciate you sharing the time with us and giving us all your insights.
No, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
All right. See you guys next week.
All right.
See ya.